just have to say how nice it is to have this room full again and have you all back here celebrating with us. I know the choir was here last year, and you all are wonderful, and you sound terrific, but it's just not the same. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning to discover exactly how long your life would be. This is the world author Nikki Ehrlich envisions in her debut novel, The Measure. One morning, adults 22 and older throughout the world wake up to discover a beautifully crafted wooden box with the words, "The measure of your life lies within," carved on the outside, with a simple string inside. Every person's string is a different length. And after some research, experts determined that the length of your string corresponds to the exact length of your life. Some lucky individuals discover that they have long strings, guaranteed a long, though not necessarily carefree life. Others discover that they have shorter strings. Some short stringers discover that they only have weeks or months left to live, while others have to reconcile how to spend the few remaining years they may have left. Some short stringers act out with violence. Some leave relationships or quit their jobs to travel the world, trying to pack as much meaningful time into what's left of their lives. Some are left by partners with longer strings who can't bear the thought of knowing that they will lose this person they love too soon. The world divides into short stringers and long stringers. And what follows is a beautiful and heartfelt novel in which the 8 main characters try to navigate the implications these strings have for their own lives, their relationships, and their world. What would our lives look like if we knew exactly how much time we had left? Would it change the way we went about our day-to-day routines? Would it affect our sense of what's important or urgent or meaningful? The truth is, we just don't know. How much time we have left in this world is ultimately a mystery. But these high holy days, these days of awe and introspection, are our annual reminder that our lives are finite. This is our opportunity to take stock of the past year, to assess our lives and ask ourselves honestly and with humility, is my life moving in the right direction? Am I happy? Am I finding meaning and fulfillment in my work, or my family, or my volunteering, or my philanthropy? Do I like who I am? Our tradition and our liturgy of this time of year call us to ponder what gives our lives meaning. In this season, we imagine a Sefer HaChaim, a book of life. Last year's book is coming to a close, and this year's book remains open and unwritten. As we look back over our lives, tonight with an eye towards a new year, I'd like to also ask, how do we tell the story of our lives? Think for a moment about the story of your life. This is the story of who you are, where you came from, where you dream of going in the future. The high point of your life, the low point, the turning point. It's what you believe in, what you fight for, what matters most to you. That story isn't just a part of you. It is you in an essential way. How we tell that story matters a great deal. And tonight, as we reflect on the year that's been and on our lives thus far, we must also consider how we continually edit and adapt that story. While Nikki Ehrlich picked a straight length of string to represent the length of her characters' lives, more and more experts agree that our lives no longer follow a linear path. Today, the shape of our lives and our life stories are as unique and varied as each of us. Our strings would be balled up and twisted around in knots. Throughout history, scientists, philosophers, psychologists, and theologians have offered numerous theories on how our lives unfold. Early on, our understanding of the shape of our lives was framed by our observations of the world around us. Our lives were seasonal or cyclical. Later, the idea of phases or stages became prevalent. Even the rabbis of the Mishnah weighed in on the prescribed stages and benchmarks of a person's life, including things like when a child should begin their study of Torah, age 5, or when they become responsible for the mitzvot, our sacred obligations, age 13, or when a person should get married, 18, or when they attain wisdom, 40. Later still, life was described as moving through stages or phases in a straight line, or perhaps as a staircase with a rising action in the first half of our lives, a pinnacle of productivity and worth somewhere around the middle, and then a falling action through the second half of our lives. For many of us, right now, life is not predictable. The norm for most of us is that our lives no longer unfold in orderly passages, stages, phases, or cycles. Instead, our lives have become increasingly non-linear. Consider Israeli poet laureate Yehuda Amichai's response to the famous words of Ecclesiastes, which he wrote in the early 1980s. A person in their life has no time to have time for everything. They have no room to have room for every desire. Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. A person has to hate and love all at once, with the same eyes to cry and to laugh, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, make love in war and war in love. Amichai touches on the chaos that many of us feel these days, particularly in the tension of trying to understand the constant bombardment of twists and turns and pivots in our lives today, still trying to fit them into that antiquated linear framework of where we should be at any given stage of our lives. Over the years in my work as one of your rabbis, I've seen the hurt and pain just under the surface, far more than many of us might let on, especially over these last few years of enduring this grueling pandemic. I remind myself and you today that we need to be kind and gentle to ourselves and to care for each other as well. And we need to make sure we're equipped with the tools to navigate the pain and difficulty and upheaval in our lives. Author Bruce Feiler, in his book, Life is in the Transitions, Mastering Change at Any Age, offers some important lessons and tools for how we can embrace and thrive in a world constantly full of change and disruption. Feiler argues that because our nonlinear lives involve more big life transitions that can appear at any time in our lives, these transitions are a skill we can and must master. Feiler calls the catalysts for these moments of transition disruptors. Disruptors are everyday events that reshape our lives, and he divides them into 5 basic themes. The first is love. Things like getting married, getting divorced, caring for an aging parent, having a child leave home, or the death of a loved one. The second is identity. A change in where you live, coming out, experiencing homelessness, a major move, or a change in finances. The third area is beliefs. Things like a change in your personal spirituality or religious practice, experiencing a personal calling, travel, or some sort of collective societal event. The fourth theme is work. A change in your responsibilities at work, losing or quitting a job, training for a new career, a professional recognition, or maybe retirement. And finally, number 5, body, covering things like an accident or personal injury, chronic illness, mental illness, addiction and recovery, gender transition, or changing your personal health habits. But every once in a while, a select few disruptors become moments of major life upheaval. Feiler calls these Lifequakes. He explains, Lifequakes involve a fundamental shift in the meaning, purpose, and direction of a person's life. A lifequake is a forceful burst of change in one's life that leads to a period of upheaval, transition, and renewal, which can last around 5 years on average. How many will you face? The average seems to be, says Feiler, between 3 and 5 lifequakes in a lifetime. Lifequakes are personal, like divorce or being diagnosed with a serious illness, or collective, like the pandemic we've all been living through these past 2.5 years. They can also be voluntary or involuntary, a change you initiate or a disruption that is beyond your control. Given the possibility that we could be spending many years of our lives in a state of transition, potentially as many as 18 to 20 years, Filer explains that it is crucial that we start to ask ourselves what we can learn from all this upheaval. What is it that gives me meaning, and how does that influence the story of my life? A lifequake is an opportunity to initiate a period of self-reflection and personal revelation. It shakes us awake, makes us reconsider what is most important in our lives, what to hold on to and what to let go of. So too in Jewish tradition, the high holy days come around every year in the midst of calm or upheaval to ask the very same questions of us. We are all in the midst of a once in 100 years collective lifequake, and it's a big one. Think about the loss and uncertainty and pain over the last 2.5 years. The ripples of this pandemic and what it has uncovered about some of the brokenness within us, our society, and our world. We know it. We feel it. But what now? What tools can we develop within ourselves to master these periods of transition? We return to Filer and consider how deeply Jewish his 3 essential tools for coming through this moment are: agency, belonging, and cause. First, agency. Filer describes this as having autonomy, freedom, creativity, and mastery, the belief that you can impact the world around you. One of the most important prayers in our High Holy Day liturgy, Unatana Tokef, is in part a meditation on our ability to exercise agency in our lives. Yes, this prayer says, there may be terrible things that happen, and at the end of the day, we have very little control over who will live and who will die. But the refrain, the central message of this prayer is that through teshuvah, the return to the right path, tefillah, prayer, and tzedakah, righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. These actions remind us of the power that we possess as humans. If we take an active role in our lives, even as we recognize our limitations, we can forge new paths forward. There are small but powerful choices we can make to maintain our sense of agency. Am I determined to fight or let go? Will I tell my loved ones that I love them, or I'm sorry, or leave it unsaid? Will I ask for help when I need it, or struggle silently? Each of these actions may seem small, but in the midst of overwhelming challenges, we can search for smaller actions that may be within our control. Next is belonging. Filer describes this as a focus on relationships, community, friends, and family, the people that surround and nurture you. Tending to our relationships is one of the major undertakings of this season of teshuvah. Indeed, it's one of the major undertakings of our synagogue life, our life as a synagogue community. Teshuvah, though often translated as repentance, really means returning, as in returning to the right path. Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg teaches that when we take seriously the task of cheshbon hanefesh, of taking account of our actions and our souls, and then wholeheartedly do the work of teshuvah, we have the possibility to not only repair and transform our relationships, but ourselves as well. This work is rooted in our own agency, in our capability to own our mistakes and the hurt we may have caused others, and to make an active choice to seek repair. We own those times we fought with our partners, or yelled at our kids, or chose that meeting over a recital. We consider the hurt we have caused and how we might choose differently in the future, seek balance or guidance or help. We remember we don't have to navigate these pitfalls alone. Through this healing process, we can become more deeply integrated and connected to our families and our communities by being present with the fullness of our being. Finally, cause. For Filer, this means finding a calling, a mission, a direction, a purpose, a transcendent commitment beyond yourself that makes your life worthwhile. Find meaningful ways to give back to your community through philanthropy or volunteering or advocacy. Turn your gaze inward to consider your own stance towards how you view and experience the world. Part of this is about developing a practice of gratitude. Every morning, the rabbis of the Talmud taught, we should wake up and offer words of gratitude for the opportunity of a new day. In the Talmud and in our morning liturgy, we find the words of Modeh Ani. Modeh Ani lefanecha, melechai v'kayam, she'achazarta bi nishmati bechemla, Rabbi emunatecha. I give thanks to you, ever-living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. When we wake up, even with aches and pains, even in the midst of suffering and chaos, we offer these words of thanks for simply being alive. In some of the most challenging moments in my own life, when I have felt stretched too thin or found myself doubting my abilities, I have found comfort and uplift in this prayer. I'm not always consistent in saying it, but I'm always struck by Modeh Ani's powerful message. Not only do we profess our faith in God, but we remind ourselves of God's faith in us. When we take on a stance of gratitude for what we do have, even if it doesn't feel like much, we become more attuned to those around us who may have even less, and we can be more open to tending to their needs as well. To Feiler's list, I would also add hope. The Jewish people have been sustained throughout our difficult history, not only through gratitude, but with an ability to hold on to hope as well. One powerful example of seeking out meaning and hope, even in the midst of incredible tragedy, is a story told by Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust. In Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl's message was that even in the face of unimaginable bleakness, humans can find hope. He wrote, "You do not have to suffer to learn, but if you don't learn from suffering, then your life becomes truly meaningless. The key," he said, "is to imagine a better time, to have a reason to live." He quotes Nietzsche, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." Nearly 2 centuries earlier, Rabbi Natan Nata Shapira, the chief rabbi of Krakow, reflecting on the meaning of Elul, the Hebrew month of introspection leading up to Rosh Hashanah, teaches that Elul could be read as an acronym, Aron Luchot Ushvurei Luchot, that the ark the Israelites carried through the desert contained not just the second set of tablets containing God's law, but also the shards of the broken tablets as well. In other words, even as we do the work of repairing the brokenness in our lives and work to move forward, we still carry some of that brokenness and the lessons from the difficult times with us. Sometimes our most difficult experiences make the greatest impact in shaping who we are, how we view the world, and how we understand and tell the story of our lives. So, what is the story we tell about our lives? Would the plot or the highlights of that story change if we knew exactly how long our lives would last? The truth is, we just don't know how long our strings are. And maybe that mystery is a good thing. In the measure, Amy, who chooses not to look at the string inside her own box, writes to her pen pal Ben, a short stringer. "You asked if everyone deserves happiness. I certainly think so, and don't think having a short string should make that impossible. If I've learned anything from all the stories I've read of love and friendship, adventure and bravery, it's that living long is not the same as living well. Last night, I looked at my own box for the first time in months. I didn't open it, but I reread the inscription. The measure of your life lies within. Sure, it's pointing to the string inside, but maybe that's not the only measure we have. Maybe there are thousands of other ways we could measure our lives, the true quality of our lives that lie within us, not within some box. And by your own measure, you can still be happy. You can live well. Tonight, as we welcome a new year and reflect on our own life stories, our tradition reminds us that it's not too late to embrace change or make change in our lives. We have a choice in how we conceptualize and tell our stories. Do we tell a story of how moments of major change made our lives worse? Or can we find a way to consider the ways in which those moments of change helped us to learn something about our capacity for love, or our resilience, or our strength? The true measure of our lives lies within each of us. And if we are kind to ourselves and care for ourselves and are patient with ourselves and others, we too can live well. As we prayed tonight, Avinu Malkeinu, Chotvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim, Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of life's well-lived. Shana Tova Umetuka. May this be a good and sweet new year, one full of health and openness to the changes and challenges that await us.